Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day to day lives. Let's start with the video.
I don't come from money, and financially, my parents did their best to provide for us. Growing up, our basic needs were met, and they were able to help us out with high school education and college tuition for my brother. I had to take a study loan in which my grandfather helped me out, and I've basically lived the last 10 years of my life paying it back. Even after getting jobs, it wasn't enough to live in luxury. But I'm not complaining because, along with my hubby, we were able to make a decent and happy living. We didn't have any children because we both agreed financially we weren't well enough to take care of them. So the little savings that we did have, we used on buying ourselves a house and living our best life. Unfortunately, my husband passed away a year ago. Last year has been an absolute struggle. My life was turned upside down. I even struggled with depression for a few months. I had to join a support group to learn to deal with his loss. Of course, my family was there for me, but none of them understood what it was like to lose your husband. I loved being with them, and I'd feel better when I'm around people. But as soon as I came back to an empty house, it all hit me, and I'd either go straight to sleep or stay awake all night crying. I even skipped meals sometimes, and it was showing. That's when my brother asked me to stay at his place every other night. It really helped me to come to terms with my life and the loss. So, when a year later my brother was struggling financially and didn't have anyone to help him out, I offered him a solution. I told him that he could move into my place with sister in law and stay there as the house was too big for me to live alone. I told him it's not a big deal, as I'd appreciate the company. More importantly, I didn't want his kid to struggle as we did. If I had the means to make his life a little better, I wanted to do so. Never had I thought that this decision would cost me so heavily. My brother and sister in law moved into my house about 4 months ago, and initially, it wasn't a bad arrangement. They stayed out of my life mostly and kept me company whenever I felt alone. My nephew was loud enough for the house to feel like a big family lived in it. There were times when things annoyed me, but after having a chat with sister in law or my brother, we were able to adjust so that all of us could live comfortably. I trusted them and didn't think about leaving them alone whenever I had to go out for a work trip. At first, I didn't notice many changes because the things they used to pawn off were items like silverware from a set or one of the books from my husband's classic collection. I rarely used to visit anything that had my husband's memory because it was too hard to look at them without being sad. I boxed almost all of his stuff and put them in the basement. The only things that I kept around me was our wedding ring that I still wear, a few of his t-shirts and hoodies that I wear whenever I miss him to the point of it overwhelming me, his favorite mug, and the music box he gave me when we were struggling a lot after his initial diagnosis of cancer. That was my most cherished possession. When he gave it to me, he asked me to listen to the melody because I've always taken a keen interest in music, and it's the only thing that used to calm me down. While growing up, music was something that didn't require a lot of money for me to enjoy. I could hum it or create it out of the things I had, and I could always listen to the radio free of cost. So the significance of that music box was too great in my life. I only found out that my brother and sister in law were selling my stuff when that box went missing. At first, I thought I kept it somewhere and forgot. I turned the whole house upside down, trying to search for it. And when I asked my brother if he had seen it, he said he didn't. I asked my sister in law if my nephew was playing with it, and she denied it. Even though I knew I hadn't boxed it away with my husband's other stuff, I still decided to check out the basement. When I went through his stuff, I finally noticed how a few things were missing. There was no explaining it away because I was certain I didn't throw anything out, and nor did I loan any of my husband's books. But I was still not confident enough to accuse my brother of stealing. So I went around the house checking all the valuables I owned, and to my surprise, a few of the silverware was missing. We got them as a gift from my in laws, and I was too scared to take them out, so I definitely wasn't mistaken this time. I finally confronted my brother and sister in law about all this, but they kept denying it. My brother even tried to gaslight me, saying I must be mistaken because I was depressed and struggling a lot last year and had a habit of zoning out. But I pressed even harder. Sister in law finally admitted to stealing and selling those things. She defended herself by saying, I live alone without any children and don't need those things. She saw them all lying around, not being used, so she and my brother sold them to try and make ends meet. I couldn't believe it. Everything else I could have looked over, but they took away my husband's last memory from me. So I kicked them out of the house and pressed charges. I didn't have any hope of getting that music box back, but I wanted some kind of revenge. They need to pay for what they did. And now everyone, including my parents, are mad at me. They're all saying that I took them in and then kicked them out without a moment's notice. They are saying I should have let them stay for the kid. They are especially pissed because I filed the lawsuit knowing full well that my brother and sister-in-law can't afford it, and I can't understand how they could blame me when my brother was the one who crossed the line by miles. Am I really the a-hole here for kicking them out and fighting the lawsuit, or do they deserve this after what they did? The contact my brother gave me before I kicked his family out was checked out to be real. I reached out to the person a week ago and they only got back to me today. Apparently, he sold it online and the person lives in another country. I texted them my situation and explained to them how much that music box means to me. I asked them if they have received the package, but they haven't, so I asked them if it was possible for them to return it after they receive it. The buyer didn't reply to me for 2 whole days, and I really thought it was a goner. But thankfully, they got back to me and said they wouldn't return it, as they bought it fair and square. I was devastated and tried to talk to them again. I even told them I'd refund everything and would pay for the customs and shipping charges by myself. All they had to do was wrap it up and send it to the post office. They were flat out refusing to hand it back. I don't know how people can be so horrible that they refuse to understand the value of human attachments. Anyway, I didn't give up and in the end found another one just like the one my husband has gifted me. The only difference was that the one I got had a special message carved on it, so there was no replacing that one. I contacted the buyer again and told him I'd refund him the amount he paid and would order the same product from a seller without asking for any money. Finally, they agreed to return it. I just hope I don't get scammed here and could actually get the music box back. Today was the first hearing for the lawsuit I filed against my brother, and also the first time I saw him after I kicked him out of my house. I couldn't hire the best lawyer out there because money was tight, as I chose to spend a lot of it trying to retrieve the music box, which I still haven't received. But I'm feeling pretty confident about the one I hired, even though he had more losses than wins. He has assured me the case is straightforward because we had the evidence from my sister-in-law's Etsy account where she uploaded the products to sell. She had deleted them now, but I was fast enough to keep the screenshots. Honestly, now that I've gone over the entire thing, I think my brother really thought I was too dumb to ever figure out their swindling. They left so much evidence that it's hard for them to not be incriminated. We only went over the charges I was suing for and the evidence that was submitted today. We have another hearing a week from now, and I hope this lawsuit will wrap up fast so I can be done with these people once and for all. A quick update here. I received the music box today. I'm so glad I was able to get it back. It cost me a lot, but it was worth it. I broke down the moment I unwrapped the package, and the relief I felt was unexplainable. This time, I might have to lock this up in a safe to avoid a repeat of the past month's struggles. Finally, I won the lawsuit. My sister in law took all the charges on herself because most of the transactions and online listings were made from her account. When I found out they were going to accept the charges, I didn't push for both of them to be prosecuted. I don't want their kid to be parentless. My sister in law got 15 months in prison and was fined $10,000 for reselling the items. I know $10,000 is huge, but I have no regrets after what they did to me. I wish they'd suffer just like I did. As for all the goods that were sold, a few of those went overseas, so I don't know if I'll get them back. But the goods that were sold within the country are being retrieved. I hate that I'm not the only one, as the buyers were also victims. I just hope I never see the faces of my brother or his wife ever again in my life. NTA, not the a-hole. It's true that you reap what you sow. Your brother helped you and he got to stay at your place. So if he wants to steal from you, then he deserves to be kicked out. NTA, you did the right thing by pressing charges. If anyone says you're wrong, cut them off because they are definitely not your well-wishers. So I, 28 female, am the only girl in my family and surrounded by older brothers in their 30s. They all have spouses, children, own homes, and work. I, however, do not have any children, nor do I want them. I understand completely that having children to raise takes a village, and I help out with watching them, buying clothes for them, etc. Please keep in mind, in total, I have 11 nieces and nephews. My brother, Joshua, is getting married in 2 weeks, and today they decided to go to court to file for the marriage license. The kids, 15 female, 12 female, 6 male, 3 male, are on fall break, so I was surprised they choose today to go. I was having breakfast with my parents, stopping by, before doing errands on my one day off this week. Joshua called my mom and asked if I was there since he already has been to my apartment and received no response. My mom confirmed I was here for breakfast. He said, "Oh, I was going to ask her to watch the kids." My mom firmly said to call me to see if I was busy. He agreed and hung up. An hour goes past and I start getting my things to leave. As I am packing up, Joshua comes and sees me and said, "I brought the kids for you to watch. Me and Tanya, 33 female, have to go file for our marriage license." I responded with no. I have errands to run and things to do, and you didn't even check to see if it's okay to drop the kids off. I firmly said, "I can't watch your kids," grabbed my bag, and headed to my car. He followed and said, "Come on, this is what family does. I need someone to watch my kids." I again said no and basically said, "You guys decided to have kids just like I decided to not have them. Automatically assuming I will want to watch your kids on your day off is selfish. If this is truly what family does, ask your future wife to ask her family to watch the kids." He was mad, but now I'm getting slack from it. I feel like since I am the youngest and childless, they automatically assume I will be cool with watching their kids. And half the time, Joshua doesn't bring anything for the kids. My second oldest brother, Marcus, 33 male, said I was an AH for not wanting to help out. Parents get tired sometimes, but people who work, run a business, and have to run behind kids at least twice a week because someone needs a sitter, get tired too. So AITAH for not wanting to watch my nieces and nephews? Absolutely NTA. Yes, it takes a village, but people have to agree to be a part of your village. Parents can't just assume family members will help simply because they are family. Yes, parents get tired, but so does every other adult who has a job and responsibilities. If you decided to become a parent, you do it knowing that you are primarily responsible for your children. OP, you are NTA, nor are you responsible for babysitting ever, but especially not when they didn't even have the decency to ask. They need to find some sitters, especially after being asked by your mother to call and ask. I'm petty, but I'd be like, well, bro, because you couldn't even be bothered to ask if I'm available, I'm going to tell you that you need to ask 2 weeks in advance if I'm available. Also, it's not like getting a marriage license takes a long time to get. With 15-year-old and 12-year-old old enough to watch the younger kids long enough to get the license, they didn't need you for that. I, 23 female, have grown up under my grandparents' care. To me, they are mom and dad. They are the ones who put effort and care into me. My biological mother abandoned me when I was 2 weeks old because of drug abuse. I have had absolutely no contact and no desire for contact. My custody dispute was very intense. My biological mother dropped me off and went no contact. My parents were worried about me getting hurt and being legally unable to get me medical care if I needed it, so they opted to gain full custody of me. For whatever reason, my biological mother retaliated and sent an illegitimate letter describing abuse and neglect from my parents, even going as far as claiming my parents stole me from my biological mother. It took my parents even longer to prove the letter was fake after my biological mother failed to appear in court herself and after a DFS investigation. About 2 years ago, my mother approaches me and tells me my biological mother was coming to live with us for some time. According to my biological mother had finally gotten clean and had another child. As she was having trouble in the last state she lived in and wanted to do better for herself and her son, I was very vocally against this. My mother told me she understood how I felt, but my mother wanted to do what was best for the child, and she was allowing this for the child's sake, not my biological mother's. I eventually relented and agreed for the child's sake. The move-in happens, and my parents made it very clear that my biological mother was to get a job as soon as possible, having her arrival date in the text so she couldn't claim squatters' rights. My biological mother opted for welfare and low-income housing in the end. The only reason I know this is my biological mother pulled a stunt trying to claim my income, even though I was an adult before she finally moved out. About 4 months ago, a friend came in to talk with me while I was at work. He brought up how he met my mother at the dollar store she worked at, and I had to correct him. I restated my boundaries to her much more firmly and in a scathing manner. I pointed out how she's wronged me, and I even called her out for only claiming me as her daughter when it benefited her. My mother passed away in September, so emotions in the entire family are very high. The day after my mother's death, my biological mother showed up to my home and started to butt in about how she was still there as my mother, and I restated my boundaries and then made her leave. After that, I've had no contact with her. I very much do not want her around. I'm planning on telling her flat out she is not welcome anymore, even for family gatherings. However, I may be going too far if I do. WIBTA? NTA, and sorry for your loss. I 100% get where you're coming from, and I do think it's your right to enforce your wish and to go no contact. Forbidding her to come to family gatherings that do not only involve you makes the whole thing more complicated, though, because the other people are her family as well. I feel like you cannot take away her right to see them and their right to spend time with her. I also feel like you don't have the authority to forbid an adult to come to family gatherings if the other family members are okay with her being there. That being said, from what you're saying, the other family members might be on your side because they probably have witnessed your biological mom's behavior too. Talk to them and try to find a solution together. However, IMO, you can tell your biological mom that you don't want her at family gatherings. That's different from forbidding her to come. That doesn't prevent her from going, and maybe you just cannot do anything about it if she does show up, but at least you're making sure she knows where you stand. NTA, you have a right to your feelings. However, your bio mom is your father's daughter as well, and it sounds like he still loves his daughter but is willing to go no contact to support you. Also, you may not consider her other child as your sibling, but it is his grandchild. So if you instituted this ban on biomom not being allowed at family gatherings, it means that he would also be excluding his grandchild most likely unless biomom is willing to allow the child to attend without her. I don't think you have to sacrifice your feelings at all. I just hope your father tries to have some type of relationship with his daughter for his grandchild's sake at least. He deserves to have a family as well. I understand and respect why it may be hard for you to have a relationship with the child, so I'm not advocating for that.